Hello, it is now just before 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm absolutely exhausted. Sorry about the way I look. Basically, my hair looks like a mess because by now the attacks are so brutal that I can't actually sit at my own desk without wearing this permanently, like all day long. And this has been the case now for, I think, the last 2 months, pretty much. But now the attacks are so brutal that, so they will just shine on this helmet, and if there's any gaps or something, the radiation back reflects or just shines through, and literally your head will be just fried. It's that brutal. And I mean, you also, I'm sorry about, really, it must be horrible to watch these videos, but what you can see here on my skin are injuries, because at night they use pencil beams to trigger individual muscles, and they seem to be quite keen on the face, because so what they're doing is they are reading out brain prints. So my head gets irradiated massively, and then individual muscles are made to twitch, and then I think they read out how these how the muscles are connected up. I'm sorry, it sounds probably really just out there if you don't know about physics, but that's just how it is. So this is all part of the Human Brain Project, or it should be rather called the Human Brain Fuck Project. And what many people haven't been told is that this is actually a military project. It's a military mind control project. A military project to control the populations down to the smallest neurological level. So you don't even have free will in the fact that, you can't just choose the amount of tax you pay, or maybe which doctor you go to if they change the rules of the NHS. You will not have freedom to think what you want to think, basically. Because if you think the wrong thoughts, automatically an integrated microwave beam is just going to lobotomize you or burn out the bit of your brain. And I'm not joking, because I've told you before I made a video, or maybe I haven't uploaded it yet, that what I discovered is just when they microwaved my head, in the beginning it was just a side, but then after a while, when the pain became extremely intense, I realized that there are two beams crossing. I could just move my hands around my head or even around my body, and I realized that there were two beams, so my knuckles would ache when they would go into the microwave beam. It's that intense, so you could map it out, and then I could map out the other microwave beam. So what they're doing seems to be the case, that they are overcrossing two beams. So it passes through one person if they're standing next to you and they don't feel pain. But by this means, you can actually have depths. So, if a beam passes through, your eyes are high enough that you feel pain everywhere, or you just feel pain on the side that hits you, your skin gets burned. But when you use overcross beams, where the beams overcross, you get double the amount of radiation, so you cause intense pain. And with that, you can literally just assault people in 3D. So you can just, microwave their liver, or microwave their heart, or microwave inside their brain. And these microwaves, beams are so powerful, they essentially punch through balls. So when they punch through your body, it causes incredible damage. And they have been doing that. So there's still this ongoing campaign my marriage and my life is now in tatters, because these people have become ever more psychopathic, and every single time there's this a stage theater, you can just see the system, how it's mapped out, because you have these absolutely degenerate, whacked out old wankers, the handlers, who you can see are really enjoying it, and then you've got these utterly gormless, pointless gang stalkers who just look stupid. But anyway, so they've now tried to completely disintegrate my relationship. So, my husband would come home, we would be laughing and joking, and I would just turn away, and he would just leave the room, and suddenly I would hear him just go, oh, and then he collapses literally onto the floor, and he's depressed. But this just turned on like that. So I know, oh, they hit his brain again with a frequency, and he gets so upset because no one can handle the onslaught of fucking psychopathology from these intelligence agencies, like pointless, senseless psychopathology, just maiming people. Like, basically they are the lone wolf, characters who in the end are just gunning people down, screaming, like without any sense or any, anything, just maiming and mutilating people. That's basically what we have now. But anyway, so it's now what seems to be the case from what I've gathered looking at the data of all the victims, is that This is really indeed the human brain project, human brain fuck project, and every country seems to have a quota of people that they have to supply for this international project. And they just select people as they've got a certain amount, like a certain number of people they have to supply, which seems to be fairly in proportion to their size. And these people just get culled. They just get culled. You know, and this isn't even like slavery, it's butchery. It's planned, premeditated butchery. And the intelligence agencies do a very callous calculation, which is they look at how long does it take you to get a lawyer? Do you even have the finances to get a lawyer? And most victims do not, because by the time they are assaulted, they have been on a harassment and Zersetzung, so disintegration program, where their finances, their social life, they physically have been disintegrated, so they can't cope. They get absolutely inundated with just harassment non-stop. Their computer gets broken, you know, people behave nastily, the council sends them stupid letters, and that's how the system works. So they take people and they utterly destroy them until they're on their last legs, and where they cannot do anything but just sit at home, maybe because they're on benefits or so traumatized, then inside their home they basically set up these beam lines and these EEG machines and essentially do remote surgery on people's brains. And if you think that's absolutely incredible, you haven't understood processing power. You really haven't. You know how the processing power just went up exponentially? Well, that's what it means. And the other thing is you haven't understood how well we can now measure electric fields, okay, electromagnetic fields. So we can do this. We've got the software to do the steering. And it doesn't matter after a while if your, you know, transmitters are just like half a meter away or you know, 200 meters away. Sorry, I'm just so exhausted, and just the amount of nonsense I had to deal with, because basically I've been trying to get through to the press for ages, and then, you know, what I get is none of the press reply or have any sign that they're even alive. And I just get these stupid GCHQ accounts, you know, harassing me. And did you see, I mean, you should really look at the pictures that I've posted, because one of them was, oh yes, the frequency is being phased in, you know, gradually being phased in. And all the dates when these accounts were opened, which are all really recent, and the chances of an account with no followers being found by another account that have just been opened this month is essentially nil. You know, there has to be some sort of connection. So the fact that they just found me within 2 days means it's GCHQ or some GCHQ-like organization. And then just look at this crap that they put up, you know. I'm pleading for my life. I'm genuinely fearing for my life. I've genuinely been attacked. You know, I genuinely went to the High Court. I'm genuinely fighting for other people's lives. And they're like, oh, the violinist, oh, the violinist. Like, fuck you. How degenerate can you be? And then the violinist is being linked to these two accounts. You know, one is the frequency when people are being assaulted with frequencies. And the other one is like the huge sword that's going to cull people, you know. That's going to cause my death or my family member's death. Ooh. You know, and they have to put in these like wanky, limp-wristed, like bullshit things. Like, oh, yeah, look at us. And just look at this guy's fucking face on the picture. Like, And journalists, go and check this out. Go and look at it. This is now the reality. This is now the IP bill in practice. Do you understand? You have to not just theoretically think about how this is. You have to look at the victim statements. This is how you understand how system actually works in practice, not just on paper. You know? And now the time has come for you, dear journalists. Now that we know that there are just 5 or 6 news organizations in every country, if that, but there are thousands of victims, you don't have to be a data analyst like me to figure out that all of you have been contacted by lots of victims before. And now, dear journalists, it's down to this. Now you've got a high energy physicist telling you, yeah, this is true. Right? This is really happening. It's happening to me. And now you have to decide if you're that corrupt or that fucking stupid that you're not reporting on this. Because you don't have to pick me. You know, I understand that, oh, as an EU citizen, I don't have a right to life, you know, in any country really. But you can pick your own British victims. Go on YouTube. Go on Twitter, find them. They call themselves targeted individuals, which is their term, but actually it should be called victims of the intelligence agencies. But I guess that's, typing even more characters into Twitter. But you can find their desperate pleas there, dear journalists. Please do the research. And, you can also research the technology. But I understand, if you're claiming, that you are too stupid, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Right? Because if you're too stupid, we're going to deal with you differently. Tomorrow, I will put on videos explaining for dummies how this works. Like little 5 to 10 minute videos where you can just click and listen, and I will literally just break it down like I used to break it down for my students. I'll do that. It will be crystal, hopefully. Okay? But after that, there are no more excuses. Do you understand? Then you cannot claim to be in the too stupid camp anymore. Then you end up in the corrupt camp, and you should really think about if you want to go there, my dears. And that's because none of you understand the speed with which information is being assembled right now. About you, about others, about everything. And the last 10 years are no predictor of the next 10 years. Do you understand? So if you are planning to live longer than 10 years, you really have to get this resolved. Do you understand? Because the shit that's going to hit you in the face is not just the shits that's brewing now. It's actually the total integral of shit that went before, that you knew about and never reported about. Or in the case of the intelligence agencies, let happen, actively let it happen, actively made it happen, or just didn't do anything to resolve it, to resolve this terrorism. Do you understand? You have to really take that in, because now, in the internet age, information cannot be erased anymore. Whatever GCHQ tells you. Because you can go around and, have little bots and crawlers and then delete all the information. You can literally do that, and that will work up until the point when another intelligence agency really want to kick you in the bollocks. Because they will do the same thing you did in reverse. They'll have their botnets just pumping it out, spreading it like a virus. And then people remember, and they'll be like, yeah, no, I do remember, for example, Britta Jacquard, who for years has been claiming that she's being tortured, maimed, and being murdered, and then she was murdered. She was dead. That was highly statistically unusual, given all the statistically unusual things that went before. And not just that. Post-mortem it was even more unusual, because she got cremated really fast. And the corruption that went with the cremation was also public. And now it's literally written everywhere that she was cremated in this corrupt way, and it's obvious to everybody with half a brain that she must have had some sort of nanoparticles or implants that don't actually degrade, don't actually biodegrade that much. So you actually have to incinerate them at a high temperature. Do you understand? It's now public. It's out there. It just cannot be removed anymore. And the question is, do you really want to do that? Because now everybody can go back and look at the year she died, and then look at the years, she complained about all this stuff, and ask, who was the head of the police at the time? Who was the head of the BND or the Verfassungsschutz at the time? Do you see? And to think that just because Britta is dead, the problem is over. No, the problems for you are just beginning. And this is now the German case. So if you want to Google Britta Jacquard, B-R-I-T-T-A, Britta, and then Jacquard, J-A-C-C-A-R-D. And that's very topical, because I think she was ethnic Swiss. I think she was actually Swiss. So the Swiss must have also known about this. And they did nothing. Do you see? So the shit's gonna flick everywhere when this stuff goes up, And it's not me who's gonna do that. So really, all of you journalists have to now pick sides. Are you too corrupt or too fucking stupid? Do you understand? And I really wouldn't want to end up in the too corrupt camp. Do you see? Because it might be a criminal offense. Because what you're doing, by having heard about these crimes, having had them explained to you in the simplest possible terms, you know, you can't claim ignorance anymore. And at that point, by not reporting after you've been told that the police is actively covering it up, you become part of the cover-up yourself. Do you see? You will have actively contributed to the victims not getting justice. You are perverting the course of justice. And that's a criminal offense under certain circumstances, because these people are being assaulted. So you know about crimes that have happened, but they also are happening, are gonna happen tomorrow and the day after, ahead of time, and you don't do anything to prevent them. That makes you an accessory to the crime. Do you see? And this is very topical, especially in Germany, because I'm distinctly conscious that my teachers told me over and over that in Germany, especially for historical reasons that are obvious to everybody, if you see a crime happening and you don't speak out, you're also guilty. You also have committed an offense. And unless they changed the law recently, I'll be very, very careful, because now all of this stuff is public. So I would really, really recommend everybody go online and have a look what's out there. Just have a look yourself, you know, and especially the people who I told personally, like Luke Harding. You know, because we spoke. And you don't have to pick my case to investigate. That was your question, wasn't it? What nationality are you? I mean, curious that it has been used in harassment theatre by MI5 and MI6, like, since donkeys, but could be just coincidence. But I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what nationality I am. I mean, legally it doesn't matter. It's still your British intelligence agencies assaulting civilians with human rights. But you can also find British victims if you really wanna. Because they're there. They're on YouTube. Do you see? You can just find them. And I really, really encourage you to do that. I really, sorry, I'm just so tired. My eyes are closed, you know. And another thing is that I would really recommend to everybody here, you know, spooks as much as journalists, have a look at, it was written by Lord Bingham. It's called The Rule of Law by Lord Bingham. It's a very, very thin book, so, you know, all of you should be able to get through it. But I really recommend you read that, because every single one of the things he says, I can use systems analysis to tell you, to show you, that's actually a necessary ingredient for democracy to stay stable. Do you understand? So if you start giving up on the rule of law, all of you, the spooks, by actively, you know, going against it, by publicly committing crimes, by actively attacking litigants in high court proceedings, and the journalists not reporting about them, becoming accessories to the crime, perverting the course of justice, you are giving up pretty much everything that Lord Bingham put into that little book. And when those things are given up, democracies become unstable. And I wouldn't recommend you go there. And I talk about, you know, from experience, because my parents and I, we fled a democracy that wasn't stable. And it's not pleasant. But it was a system that wasn't quite the same scale as your system. And that actually brings me on to the topic of national security. So now I'm now addressing the spies. Because when people go online, like the journalist hopefully will now, and have a look at the YouTube videos that are being put up and have been put up, I think very quickly they should discover two things. That I think the majority, the vast majority, like 70% are women. And then the second thing that should strike people in the UK is that the vast majority are blacks. Black women. Right? So all of these things are being put out there because you're running around mutilating people. And this is not going to pass people by, you see. This is not going to go unnoticed in the black community. And now think about it. What does it do to a man's brain? A black man's brain, when he can see these black women pleading for their lives, begging you to stop, saying, you know, what these guys are doing is microwaving us really, really hard so that period pain becomes worse. And that they are breaking into our homes. Now, anybody can figure out what you're doing. You can use, fancy science to figure out that a woman is having her period, but when you're breaking into their homes, you're probably going through their bins. And then when you can tell, this is sick enough in itself, but when you can tell that they have their period, you turn on the microwaves and you microwave their reproductive organs essentially, just so that you can have sadistic fun, making their period pain worse. And that's what I found publicly, online. And for example, when I watched the video of Rochelle Finlayson, I got really angry. Hearing what shit you were doing to her. But imagine what it's gonna do to a black man's mind, seeing that and knowing that what you're doing is essentially sexually assaulting black women, microwaving their clitoris with military microwave beams, so that they are crying in pain, just so that you can get off. Now, just think about it. Just think about how would you feel if you were in Nigeria and all these British white women, let's say little Victoria from Leamington Spa, would be begging for these Nigerian men to stop microwaving her genitals. How would you feel? How would you feel? And then more and more white women would join. Julie from Edinburgh would be just begging and saying all of these things are being done, and she's essentially being lobotomized with microwaves and her beautiful brain ablated. This is what's being done. You can Google it. You can Google microwave surgery, microwave ablation, all these things. But the point is, if you use overcrossing beams, for example, you can do it remotely. And that's what you guys are doing to us. To your scientists, to your black community. For what? To figure out that, you can damage a human's brain? You can mind control them so that they're all as stupid as you are? And I am pleading for my life. And then what I get is these fucking fake GCHQ accounts, like, oh, the violinist. Like, how degenerate is that? How degenerate can you be? Really? And then you put on these other fake accounts, you know, funnily enough, every single time it was somehow correlated with something that I actually did, the timestamps, as I put in my tweets. And then you have, oh, the huge sword coming down on all of us. And it's this other guy, you know, literally, like, having a face, like, you know, gloating at victims and then putting up a little poem. I mean, good job, you guys have got time for that. But I think if you really have time and resources for that, you haven't understood the scale of the problem here. Because, you know, I mean, when democracy went non-linear, where I come from, it was bad. But when democracy goes non-linear, and you've got the mix of people that you have in Britain, it's a different ball game. Do you understand? And then you're doing this to the black women. You essentially, what you're doing is taking a nuclear bomb and carefully placing that nuclear bomb under your cushioned backsides, and then you're bouncing up and down on the red button. Do you realize? Because, I mean, the truth is, you guys in Britain have done an amazing job as far as that's concerned. Bringing people from different corners of the world together and make them live peacefully. Yes, there are problems, but the key is the problems are not as big as they could be. But now, you're openly assaulting not just women, but your black community, openly, while we have these microwave weapons that can pass through walls, that are unregistered, that you can buy for less than a laptop, being spread throughout the country. Do you know what that means? Because, I mean, I can see that, you know, you can feel like the dog's bollocks sitting up in your, sorry, do you call both Ceausescu Towers MI5, MI6, or just the MI6 building? I have no idea. But as long as you're in there, you can feel safe. But the point is, do you really plan to spend your entire life shielded with military-grade shielding? Because you have this now being done, these weapons being spread, and these weapons can shoot at people from anywhere. Inside cars, through car windows, you know, they can shoot at the royal family, anybody. And then you guys have got the time to put up these joke accounts? I think you haven't understood the game plan here. If you really think you've got leisure for that. What you guys should be doing is going out there and mopping up these microwave guns that are being sold everywhere. You idiots. Are you totally off your rockers? All of you. Because you think these people are going to run amok just amongst themselves. No. Have you listened to what they were saying during all those protests? Really? And this is just half of the story here. Because what's rolling towards us is going to hit everybody. And in fact, because of the way systems work, it's going to hit the top the hardest. When things go non-linear, these people start killing each other. Do you understand? Because they're all psychopaths at the top. So they don't care. Do you see? This is why it's actually at the bottom sometimes more stable than at the top, depending on what's happening. But, you know, under circumstances like that, when really complex systems of a scale we've never seen before go non-linear, if you think you can lose the few people who understand systems analysis, you're mistaken. Not for my sake, for your sake. Do you understand? Because whilst I'm sitting here, I've got a pencil beam using back reflections being drilled into my back. You know, you can calculate how that's, you can just map it out using frequencies. And again, I'm being drilled into with a pencil beam on my spine, being crippled pointlessly. You guys have to wake up, because you don't realize what's under your bottoms here. You know, and tomorrow I shall make a video and explain it in the simplest possible term. But, you know, if you guys think that you can put on these gloating joke accounts, you're literally in the wrong film, guys. I mean, unless, of course, you know, these accounts were just generated by the Chinese, you know, who I'm sure are watching us all here and are just absolutely wetting themselves like the Russians are. And in that case, I mean, I am impressed, because then the Chinese really managed to just get the pitch it just right to emulate the sort of limp-wristed, pointless, gloating bullshit that essentially British intelligence is famous for, and is now publicly famous for, in Philip Kerr versus MI5. And maybe this is it, you know, the Chinese, they have a very fine sense for pitch, because their language depends on pitch so much. That's why they managed to just get it just right. Well, then I am impressed. Honestly, I'm gonna keep these things, and, you know, as a souvenir of Chinese ingenuity. But I don't think so. I really don't think so. And this means you guys still haven't understood it. Which is fair enough, because you're not scientists. But I have to say, to you deranged people and all those satanistic, pedophile, absolutely amazingly, specially messed up people in the head, that you guys are in deep trouble, because you have been screwing children and doing drugs instead of studying maths. Do you see? You have no idea what's coming. And people might do all these war simulations and funky simulations for you guys, but remember that by the time they get to your level, they're psychopaths. They're gonna say whatever. They're gonna say whatever. They don't care. They don't stick to rules, remember? So, whatever you think you know, this is not how the maps out. Do you see? So, you really, really need absolutely everybody right now, because you don't know who's holding the key inside. So anyway, sorry, it's so late, and it probably went totally over your heads already, so I'm gonna stop now, and tomorrow I'll make a really simple videos in 5-minute chunks explaining it for dummies, what's going on and why really this bullshit has to stop. But honestly, gentlemen, it is now head out of rectum time. It really is, because it's now way past midnight, and not just in real life. It really is for absolutely everybody. So please stop the bullshit. Just do.